Louisa. 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 Louisa.
The camera's on you.
Welcome to another edition of Real Talk, Straight Talk. Very special day. Got a guest, and Angel is back. So I gotta say, welcome to Angel. You haven't seen that. You can't see her right now, but you will in a minute or two. We have Peggy Sattler, MPP London West is here. But right beside me is DJ Fresh C's. I gotta say, big shout out and welcome back to Real Talk. What's going on?
Nothing much. I appreciate it. Love being on here.
Before we go any further, of course, I got to send a big shout out to all our sponsors, the Wien Community Center, of course, the Fix Hair Salon, and I get to say Angel again, putting all the guys over at Up Like 7 Barbershop, Paranite Bar and Grill. Can't go anywhere without mentioning Steven and Pride. Now, the reason you're on the show today, and you're a last minute addition, and you know, we always talk about mental health. And one of the things that we try to do is bring awareness to mental health. A few days ago, a friend of ours, well, an acquaintance I should say, we know he's a DJ friend. If you're in the London area, you probably read the news. There was an incident over at Kipps Lane where an individual shot two officers and he killed someone. Now, the sad part, it's just a sad around equation.
Yeah, most definitely.
There's nothing good about it. And with the incident that went down, I like I said, I've known the individual. I've actually worked with him a few times.
Yeah.
The last couple times, it you know, he could see that he was, you know, facing a few problems. But as we in society tend to do nowadays, you know, we don't pay a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean that, you know, if we paid that attention it would have worked. It's not about the solutions yet.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes we go along and we see people, we don't know what they're suffering, we don't know what's going on with them, and we don't just reach out and say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Now, you worked with Arctic a little bit, right?
Yeah, I did.
And more importantly, I think you were on the live as it was happening.
Yeah, I definitely seen parts of it and just saw the story developing live. Firstly, our condolences to the family of Joel Cameron. You know, somebody lost their life, and also like our well wishes to the 2 cops that were putting their lives at risk to kind of protect everybody in that community. And yeah, definitely. I mean, I encountered him probably 3 months ago at a hip hop show. Now I didn't really get to talk to him as much that day because I was working the show, so I was pretty busy kind of dealing with all the acts and whatnot. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I saw any signs or anything like that. But I think it is just a sad story all in general, to be honest, because who knows if a simple call or maybe, you know, a sit down or something like that, maybe a coffee could have helped the situation. I don't know the full details, but it's never a good thing to hear something like this, especially when you hear that mental health is involved in it, because obviously then you want to reach out to the person that helped, like all parties, you know what I mean? You don't want to give excuses or anything like that, but...
No doubt. And so today, even though we're going to talk a little bit later about women in politics, we just wanted to actually put out our condolences to everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Like I said, from the person that died, for their family, to the officers, and even to Arctic himself, because like I said, we don't know what somebody's going through. And I think what I'm trying to say at least is people, you know, as we go through our day-to-day existence, as we go through our lives, there are people around us. We don't know what's going on. Just reaching out a kind word here and there.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty well all we can do unless we know for sure what's actually happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tragedy on all sides. There's a kid who's going to be left without a father now, and like that's tough. And somebody actually on both sides, you know. So it's really tough that they have to go through this situation. And I think before we start giving our opinions and whatnot, it's better to just kind of almost take what's from a situation that's so sad like this. It's kind of hard to find something like positive, but maybe just check in on family and look out for everyone.
And this is not at another date and time we're going to get into, you know, the other aspects of mental health. We just wanted to bring awareness to what's going on in our community and actually encourage people to look out for one another as much as that's possible. So at this note, I've got some guests that I'd like to bring in, and I want to thank you for being a part of the show. I'm going to get back at you in a couple weeks, and but like I said, we have Peggy Sattler is going to be here, and we've got Angel, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me here, as always.
Now, as we continue, as I get ready and get my guest.
Okay.
We're just gonna call it like a little intermission moment. Like I said, as we get ready to bring in my guest, once again I want to thank Fresh Seas. He's making a lot of noise. People, if you can hear the noise in the background, and I'm gonna kid him about this, is because I think a little bit over a month ago he tried to play basketball and got injured and tried to blame everything else. But you know what? Speedy recovery, and this is the last shot I'm gonna take of you. And like I said, let me welcome my 2 guests to the show. And I shouldn't even say 2 guests. I've got 1 guest, and I've got my regular co-host. And as we get her ready, I'm just gonna laugh a minute because she's there going, Colin, where's my mic? Where's my mic? You're gonna put me on the show, and I can't say a thing. So Is your mic on?
Yes, I believe so.
People hearing Angel, you're going to see her in a minute. And to my direct left, and I always get these things wrong. I always say right when it's to my left, but I'm actually going to get it right tonight. To my left is Peggy Sattler. Welcome back to Real Talk.
Thank you so much for having me back.
It's a pleasure. Hi, Angel.
Hey, Holly, so nice to see you again.
Thank you. Angel's been giving us the ghost treatment. And people, if you know what what ghosting is, right? You know, I don't have to say anything more. But thank you for being here this week. I see you got your. Is that your list?
Oh, it's my list.
It's your list. Well, you know what? I'm joining you. I've got a book here, and I gotta thank Michelle and Tyus and everybody for giving me the information that I needed. Now, I just love when we get Peggy back because she was actually our second politician, right? And the first one, well, you know, that went in so many different directions, and so Peggy was like a breath of fresh air.
Definitely.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi.
So here we are. Was it almost not quite a year? June will be a year into your being reelected.
That's right. Yeah.
Any surprises in the last election?
Well, I thought we might have done better than we did. The NDP, the historically low voter turnout was definitely a surprise. You know, we had 43%, I believe, of the electorate voting, and so we've never seen such low turnout. So that's a problem. I think people felt that there was no reason to get out and vote. They didn't see a party or candidate that excited them, which is a problem. We have to do more to get more people involved in politics, and certainly that's what we're going to be looking toward for the next election.
Now, what part do you think COVID played in this?
I think that you know, people experienced government in a way that they hadn't before because of COVID. Government was in their face. Government was telling them, you know, that businesses had to close, that they had to wear masks. There was all of the, you know, the government rules and regulations. And I know in my constituency office, I got so many calls from people who said, I've never called an MPP before, but you know, I'm calling now because I'm concerned about the safety of my kids at school, or I'm concerned about, you know, whether my business is going to survive. And so we heard so much from people, and I think we were at a moment in COVID where people just wanted to be able to forget about government again and get life back to normal. And so, so I think that was a factor in the election.
No, you know what? You took away one of my questions. But I was about to say, what part do you think COVID played in this? And you actually answered it. I guess I've talked to a few people, and the excitement about an election wasn't there. Some people say it was because, you know, the party that actually won, and I'm not going to get it, I'm just going to say, you know, I'm not even going to say they weren't excited about that candidate, but they thought that, you know, enough was done during COVID to kind of give them another chance.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. I mean, I don't think we've seen a premier off to such a rocky start as Doug Ford was in 2018. We're kind of living through that same history again. We're reliving that right now with what he's doing with the green belt and, you know, the stag and doe and all of these questions about who knew about the selling off the green belt, who benefited. That has got a lot of people concerned. And then the move to for-profit healthcare with these private surgery clinics now being given the legislative ability to do surgeries for people has got a lot of Ontarians also very concerned at this moment in Ontario's history.
Now, Angel, I'm going to let you ask because she brought up a few things. There's a couple questions that I can ask, but I'm going to turn it over and let you ask the questions first. I haven't heard your voice in a while, so.
I told you, he's gonna throw it on me. So, well, it's so nice to see you again, Peggy. So, just going back to what you were saying about the elections, really, yes, there was a low turnout. I was reading in the stats, and there was really a low turnout on on how people went out to vote. And I also have conversations with people in the community in regards to, are you going to vote? Did you vote? And all this stuff. And so there is a consensus in the immigrant community where some people will say, I'm not going to go vote because once you vote, your information is known and they'll know who you voted for, and as a result, I'm just going to keep my peace. So, yes,
heard that.
so that is one thing that I've been hearing more and more. So some people have their right to vote, but they're not using it because of fear of things that, okay, maybe this will happen. If they find out that I voted for this, I could get this happening. Because, like I feel when people are new to a country and they get their citizenship and they're excited, then they're told you can vote. It's like, what are the repercussions if I do something, if I vote for a party that, because everybody coming from, like, let's say coming from a corrupt African country, you know what I mean? Some people will still feel like elections play an important part to their status in the society, to the things that happen in the community, and whoever they elect will somehow affect them. So I found that very interesting in the conversations I had. So can you clear that up for those people with those fears that if they go out to vote, their information is known and something can happen to them?
Yeah, no, there's no information is collected other than they do keep records of who voted and who didn't. So certainly we know that, the people who were eligible to vote, and we know who voted. We know nothing about who those people voted for unless they tell, their neighbor or a campaign volunteer. None of that is collected, and in fact, Canada doesn't collect the same kind of information that they do in the U.S. They do exit polling in a big way in the U.S. So you'll often hear during the Senate and Congress races in the U.S. They'll have lots of data about the exit polls and who's leading and who's not. We don't do that in Canada. All we know is the turnout. So of the eligible voters, who has voted. That's all.
That's amazing. So that's one myth that's been dispelled out there. Thank you for that, Vicky.
One of the things you mentioned was the privatization of healthcare.
Yeah.
I want you to break it down a little bit so that everybody gets an understanding what's involved in the privatization of healthcare.
Sure. So right now in London, we have the London Health Sciences Centre, LHSC, a hospital I'm very proud of. They do excellent work. They just created something called the Nazem Kadri Centre for Ambulatory Care. You may have heard about this new standalone surgical center that performs kind of minor, low complexity surgeries, and they're able to do it more quickly, so people don't have to wait. They have fewer, they need fewer instruments to do these surgeries. There are fewer healthcare workers who are in the OR at any one time, so they're able to move people through more quickly. That is a surgical center that is under the total oversight of the hospital. It is a publicly run surgical center that is able to move people through more quickly and help deal with the wait list. What the Ford government is proposing is to create similar standalone surgical centers that will be privately owned and operated. So there will be, shareholders who will, or owners who will make money from the proceeds of these surgeries. So we hear the government say that the actual surgical procedure will still be covered by OHIP, which is important. But the thing to remember is that you could well be asked to pay for a whole bunch of other things that are related to that surgery that if you were in a hospital or a publicly run facility, you would not have to pay for. And what we have found from other jurisdictions, there was just a research report that came out today that said, BC was experimenting with private clinics for a while, thinking that it might help deal with the backlog and deal with the wait list. And they found that in fact it doesn't improve the wait list. We see healthcare workers who are in very short supply moving over from the public system to the private system, so it makes the healthcare worker shortages worse in the public system, and people will end up paying. The procedure itself may be an insured service and covered by OHIP, but they can charge you they can tell you need to stay an extra day in the bed for your own safety and then charge you for that. They can charge you, they can upsell you. This is a big problem. The Auditor General found this with cataract surgeries, that people were told, well, the lenses that OHIP will cover are not very good, so you better pay the $400, $500 and we'll put in a much better quality lens for you. And people don't have the medical knowledge to be able to make an informed decision.
Yeah, when you go visit your healthcare professional, you think of them as the right person, the person who's always going to give you the best information possible and do the best by you.
Yes, exactly.
But
working
now,
in the patient's interest, not the shareholder interest.
Right, but when you privatize healthcare, now you're talking, there's somebody that's looking at this as a business transaction, not a medical transaction, a business transaction.
Exactly.
Right. The Ford government said that by privatizing certain parts of healthcare, it'll reduce wait times.
And as I said, that's just not borne out in other places that have tried this. The data, the evidence show that that's not the case. And what we see in BC and other provinces, I think Saskatchewan, they're actually, the government is buying back private clinics so that to bring them back into the public system to try to, improve access to patient care and make sure that people aren't having to pay out of pocket for the health care that they deserve.
Now, conspiracy theorists will say somebody's making big bucks somewhere, somebody is greasing something somewhere, right?
Well, it's the same thing with the Greenbelt. I mean, that's the big question about the Greenbelt.
Yes.
Who's benefiting? Who was behind these decisions as to which part of the Greenbelt was going to be carved out?
That's right.
And I'm going to ask you again, so to explain certain things, for those of you that don't know, what is the Greenbelt?
So the Greenbelt is a swath of protected land that runs mainly around the GTA to Niagara and then up to the Bruce Peninsula. And it is protected because it includes the wetlands and the biodiversity, the agricultural land that are, we need to protect our environment and for food security to feed our population.
And that's another topic in itself, because I remember farmers are saying that the farmlands are shrinking more and more because corporations are buying.
319 acres a day Ontario is losing, and the last time that StatsCan did the surveys about how much the farmland is disappearing, it was 175 acres a day. So the rate at which we are losing farmland is increasing alarmingly quickly.
And somebody's saying, well, we're having a housing shortage, right? And so we need to do this to satisfy the demand. There's a demand for housing. There's a demand for affordable housing. We've got to free up this land. But here's the next thing, right? If you take away this land, like you said, food, you're taking away land from farmers.
Exactly.
So wouldn't that mean at some point down the line that food prices will raise?
Well, I mean, no. I would say
and that's
no.
how I asked.
But the big concern is no one believes that in those areas of, where the Greenbelt is around the GTA, York region, etc., no one believes that there's going to be affordable housing built in those areas. Those are going to be the mega mansions, yeah, that we don't have a shortage of mega mansions. We have a shortage of truly affordable, starter homes, townhomes. We don't have rent control on many of the new buildings that are being built in this.
So there's no way that somebody is saying, well, you know what, I'm going to make sure that there's transportation to these areas, so I'm going to build 300 low-income or affordable homes in this area, and I'm going to make sure there's transportation so that people can drive 2 hours out to get there.
And if we look at it really, like the Greenbelt is mostly along the wetlands, and so that makes a good beach house colony. Like, how many houses are going to be by the, like, honestly, like, they've got the waterfront there and all those fun things. So it's going to be, I don't see it being a low-income housing project running there. Never. No. I totally agree with the mansions being built over there. I mean, I'm not in agreement, but I believe that that's possibly what's going to happen. That there's going to be mansions and people who can afford it are going to, and it's going to be not the best for the economy.
Yeah,
especially for the people, because now, like right now with, if you take a look at it, we're going through a recession, and always in a recession, the people who suffer the most are the low income and the middle class, right? So obviously, the upper class can always benefit from the struggles that are happening, because some cases they've got more money in their pockets and they will be able to afford these mansions, and as a result, we're still going to suffer, because like right now, you see the mortgage rates going up. You see people can't afford groceries.
Yeah.
People can't afford a whole lot of things, like even like just extra activities for kids.
The gas bills.
The gas bills.
Yeah.
And electric bills are outrageous right now. So it's
who's buying the houses too?
Who's buying the houses?
Yeah,
people, there was a rush in buying houses just during, before and during COVID, because people got those stimulus checks. Well, they got their checks and they said, okay, fine. People were sharing houses. Some people said, okay, let's invest in houses. So a lot of houses were bought. But because now they can't sustain that, I don't know if there's a foreclosure system that's going to happen, and people know all these things are
I think that's going to
go into foreclosure, because houses are on the market, no one's buying.
Yeah. And
it's like so hard for the middle class and the lower class. So, yeah, the Greenbelt situation.
Yeah. But to get back to your question about food security, there is no doubt that our food security is going to be compromised. I mean, when you look at the Holland Marsh, Ontario is one of the few places in the world that is actually able to export food. So we are able to help address some of the urgent, food security needs in countries around the world that are struggling. And we are going to not only lose that ability to export food, but potentially, undermine our own ability to ensure that we are food secure in this province, that we're able to grow and produce enough to feed our own population. It is a very risky game that the government is playing right now, and it won't do anything to deal with the housing crisis. And here in London, we've had for a number of years, there's been a focus, City Council has focused on the London Plan, which really is it's a way of developing the city that grows up, not out. It's a much more responsible use of taxpayer dollars, because you don't have to put in all the infrastructure for the new growth, and also it allows people to live where they work, and then you can put in urban transit systems to help people move around quickly. It's environmentally responsible, it's fiscally responsible, and it makes for better quality of life for people, so they're not spending hours commuting here and there. So that is really, that is where the housing shortage really is in those, like in denser neighborhoods where we need more of those missing middle homes, the townhomes and the duplexes, etc., that are really important for first-time home buyers to get a foot into the housing market.
But
Because-
it's so hard for first
For
time
everybody.
home buyers
Yeah,
And that's
to
what-
get any.
to come up
any-
with
yeah.
the down payment.
It's not only that, but you're also looking at now, there's a business interest in buying homes.
That's it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the
So-
offshore investors,
Yeah,
And-
not
yeah,
even
yeah,
offshore,
yeah,
but
yeah,
even
the domestic investors,
domestic investors. So now it's whereas, like you said, during COVID, you had a lot of actual families going on saying, yes, we're going to buy homes, and now you're having it's investments.
Yeah.
So that on the whole tends to keep
yeah.
your rents high.
Yes,
Very
and
much so.
housing is a human right. It is not an investment commodity. Like the NDP has really pushed for a speculation tax on property speculators who are just, involved in getting a portfolio of homes to generate more and more dividends, profits once again.
Should there be a limit to business investment in the
Housing.
private house? Yeah. Should there?
Well, we're certainly looking at and I think taxing speculators is a way to curb speculation, because if people know, the more homes they have, the more they'll be taxed on the speculation, then they are going to, stop buying up homes. So we need a system that is going to put some limits on the speculation that
So
we're seeing.
can we come right out and say, listen, if there's only going to be so many units available for business purposes, and put a cap on it that way?
Yeah,
and I'm just throwing things out there.
Yeah.
There can be a cap because depending unless you bring in a tax of 50% or something, it still won't scare away investors, and depending on the type of investors, right? Because at the end of the day, if they have the units, they're still going to be able to charge the fees, and as long as they can maintain that profitability,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You would, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I also want to make clear that there's nothing wrong with landlords. Like a lot of tenants, rent, and so we do. Having rental accommodation. Actually, London is one of the has one of the highest proportions of renters in Canada. We have more renters than homeowners in this city, which is kind of an interesting statistic about London.
No.
And a lot of people prefer to rent. They don't, the dream of home ownership is
I
not
would
something.
like to object to that, Peggy, because if you take a look at the reason why we have so many renters in London, is because of the fact that a lot of people in Toronto sell their $1 million homes. When I came in 2018 to London, housing was affordable.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I moved here was because of that. And it was so affordable compared to Toronto. And that's why I'm like, okay, I'm going to move to London. So a lot of people, I guess, at the same time saw the opportunity, saw their $1 million houses. You could buy a $250,000 house here. or
Really
even-
nice house.
Yes,
Beautiful.
yes.
Like Masonville area had houses for $400K, so, and those same houses in Toronto were $1 million.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was it made economical sense for people to sell and come and buy here. When the first place I moved into was owned by a person in Toronto. So I rented from them. It wasn't an option that I could buy the house. It was an option that I could rent from them. So like a lot of properties, I feel like at the time that people were able to buy or now are not able to buy, they can't buy it because it's expensive. And the other problem there was that people would come with their bag, and then Londoners are trying to buy at the rates that they used to, so they're going with their 10% down payment, and my Brampton friend is coming with a bag of $100,000 down payment, so or more. So at the end of the day, it's like the bidding is just like the highest bidder wins. So is there potential for the government to put a cap on the bidding, on houses, but we've already passed that because now we're like also renting at Toronto prices too. Because I feel like London, I feel like as you go out, it should be affordable. We shouldn't be living competitively with people in Toronto. So I feel like as a city, I understand the growth aspect, I understand the investment aspect, and don't get me wrong, it's good. Anyone in a business, anyone wanting to have as residual income in something wants to have and everybody knows, okay, real estate is a good is a good investment because it's residual income that's coming and you have renters in your house and you don't have to do anything about it. But I feel like there needs to be a cap on certain things, you know, where
I'm gonna agree, like, and where I was thinking, what I'm thinking is, once again, we're getting back to the business end of it. If you're coming here and you're gonna live here, it's one thing, but if it's all investment, then, I mean, it's kind of yes, it's a radical thing. Suppose we say all across Canada, listen, if you're going to stay in your city, right, that's fine. There'll be a certain amount of protected. So therefore, this if the rental market has got 3,000 units, 2,000 units is available for people that live in the city, and 1,000 is available for not necessarily people that live in the city, people that will also come to live in the city. But if your intent is just for business purposes and you're from outside the city, right? Then I think that's a different.
Should be regulation.
I don't even mind the business purposes in the city.
Yeah.
Right? But once you start coming in, once you have, and I think to a certain extent they're doing that with internationals, right? Canada is doing that with internationals. If you're from abroad and you want to buy something here,
the
non-resident, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be a certain version of that we can incorporate into cities so that it kind of stabilizes prices a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe that gets to the part where we're talking now, capitalism saying, you're not allowing us to make money.
Yeah. Well,
But there needs to be more solutions to keep housing affordable.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that needs to happen
Right.
in order. Yeah, we need to have, have more purpose-built rentals. We need to put rent controls back on to those buildings. Like right now in Ontario, every day we're seeing new buildings that have been constructed since November 2018. Any building since that time has no rent control. So I have people contacting my office who are notified there's like a 20% rent increase year over year. Year over year.
Yeah.
And the landlords are allowed to do that. And that's a big problem. And we have people who are, there's also no limits on what a landlord can re-rent a unit for after it's vacated. So there's a lot of unethical landlords who will try to push tenants out so that they can put the unit on the market again at a significant increase in the price. So there's a lot that can be done on to protect tenants. There's a lot that can be done to help first-time home buyers. There's a lot that can be done to incentivize developers and builders into building those kind of modest income homes. Because right now the margins aren't there. It's way more profit that they'll get from building one of these big suburban mansions that we don't need more of.
So regulations do need to be in place. Now
Yeah.
you see
But
why it's so profitable to move to
but then how much of what happens is also us as people in the London area or people in any area, the fact that we don't speak up enough, right? Is there a certain amount of pressure you think that can be applied if we as the population of a certain place, if we start talking out, if we start looking to our MPs and our MPPs and even our local governments and start saying, hey, listen, but we're not talking enough.
Yeah. No, we saw the success of public pushback against the Ford government back in November that the Ford government was going to use the notwithstanding clause to impose a collective agreement on the lowest paid education workers, the EAs and the custodians, the school secretaries, etc. And the government was going to force them back to work with this contract, and the people rose up. Like I had a lot of calls to my office from parents who said, I want my kid to be in school as much as anybody else, but I want the EA who supports my child to be fairly paid. And so, the Premier's office, heard it loud and clear from people in this province that this was not right, what they were proposing to do, and it caused them to pull back on that legislation. And so we won, the people won. The people were able to make the government listen, which it happens not nearly often enough, but it can happen.
Now,
we haven't really talked about
women in
politics.
politics. I was just
I
about
know.
to say,
you
I
see,
came prepared for women in
You see,
politics.
I knew I'd be at a significant disadvantage once we started getting into the women and politics. So, But Angel, what do you have for me on women in politics?
Oh, well, women in politics. This is a very powerful topic. What I looked at were some factors that affect, just before we started, we were talking about the number of women who are who were actually elected, right? We were talking about that. You have some fuzz that's there calling, please let us know.
I think
Yeah.
once again I gotta thank my team for the little bit of research, right? I shouldn't say a little bit, because every week
It's a lot of research.
they're doing research. On my pad it says for the MPP for in Ontario, 19 women were elected, right? 6 visible minorities,
And 2 were black.
and 2 were black.
Yeah. And right now we have 18 sitting.
Yeah, 60%.
Which is
60%.
good, because I'm like, wait a minute,
It's
60.
unheard of. It's unheard of
is.
to have 60% women. Absolutely unheard of. Rwanda actually has the highest percentage of women, elected women anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
But here in Canada, when we look at the different provinces and the federal government, it is unheard of to have 60% women, and that is because of a very deliberate effort of the Ontario NDP to encourage and support women, racialized people, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, Indigenous. These are all voices who need to be at the table when we're making decisions that affect people's lives in this province. And so we need to make sure that the people who are elected reflect the diversity and the reality of the province. So I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish, both in the election of women and also Utila Karpochi, the very first Tibetan in elected office, a Tibetan woman in elected office anywhere in North America, is now in the Ontario legislature.
That is amazing, because I'm like, just looking at that, we've got 60%. If we go back to 2015, Canada was ranked at number 50, and it only had like 25% representation back then.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is a big jump.
Yeah.
It's impressive. I feel like women are kind of like stepping up. They're like, okay, we need to be seen. And I had something that I really wanted to read, which was very empowering to me. And it's one of the women, it was Honorable Jean Ogas, and I'm going to just, she's
First black woman elected federally.
She was, so she was the first woman elected in Canada's parliament, and that was from 1993. I just have to go through because I don't want to mess it up. I have to refer to my notes, to 2006. And the one thing I liked about it, because I lived in Scarborough and I actually saw this in action, they had the Girls Leadership Academy, which was really powerful because it empowered a lot of youth in the community. And the biggest thing that I learned from that is like when you empower girls, you know, it's like they become more confident, and
Yes.
they're able to face challenges, and they go for things, you know what I mean? And this was back in the day, like 2008, when I actually got involved with the Girls Leadership Academy in Scarborough, which was quite interesting. So with that, there's a quote. I'm just going to read it. It says, "We must show up and be counted alongside today's champions. We must stand up and be the face of transgression and injustice. We must speak up on important matters that could use another healthy voice." So at the end of the day, when you listen to that, it's like, okay, I've got to do all that so that I can represent. So I really appreciate it. Like when I look at Ariel in politics, when I see you, it actually puts a smile on my face because I see women going places. You know what I mean? And it's for that girl who looks at Ariel and says, that could be me.
Yeah.
But that girl who looks
So
at you
important,
and
so
says,
powerful.
that could be me,
Yeah.
it makes everyone, it's empowering. So
Yeah.
thank you for stepping up and
Yeah.
saying, I'm going to go into this, because it's very important to do so. I also looked at some stats, and you're calling, you've got
I
something
know.
to
I just
say?
want, while you're talking, I just want to say a very special shout out to Dirka Proud,
Yes.
because Dirka, obviously, she ran for the NDP, and she
Yeah.
was also instrumental in women in getting women to be a part of the political foundation. So, big shouts to Dirka Proud. So now
Yes.
I just wanted to say that because I know when I was reading on things that she's done
Yeah.
within the party, she did a lot of things for, to encourage women in politics.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
amazing.
We just celebrated International Women's Day
We
on
did.
March 8th. And it was certainly an opportunity to acknowledge and cheer for all the progress that women have made,
We did.
but also a time to reflect on what still remains to be done. And for women like myself, for middle class white women, we've come a long way.
Mm.
But for many racialized women, for indigenous women, women with disabilities, they are really continue to face significant barriers to both, access to healthcare and education, fundamental services, and also the ability to participate. Like that is one of the big barriers to getting more racialized, more diverse women elected to office. It's because they're just dealing with too much. They're trying to put food on the table. They're trying to make sure their kids have quality childcare, have some access to opportunities. They're dealing with elder care. An aging parent at home.
That's so true.
They're running on all cylinders, and they're not getting the kind of support that I think they should be getting from the government. And I just want to talk for a minute about paid sick days. So paid sick days is an issue that I've been pushing for a couple of years to make sure that all workers in the province have access to paid sick days. Because what we saw from the data, once again looking at the data during the pandemic,
Yes.
is that it was racialized workers, racialized women in particular, who are the least likely to have access to paid sick days. It's the women who are cleaning our buildings. It's the women who are, preparing our food. It's the women who are caring for residents in long-term care homes, working as PSWs. These are the people who don't have access to paid sick days. And if the government would move forward with that policy change, it would make an enormous difference to all workers in Ontario, but in particular to racialized workers and racialized women.
That is so true. Because it is sad though that the PSWs who work so hard to take care of our elders who are now in homes and stuff, and they're the ones that can't get paid sick days. And just getting a break from that, like, you've got to also understand the mental health aspect of it, because in there, they have to deal with a lot.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm sad to say, not everyone is nice when you're doing that job, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very stressful. And you're doing a job that maybe you didn't even want to do, but it's like a means to get by,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, yeah, I feel like those jobs need their time off and have their mental health and wellness checks.
Well, and
considered.
we know how dangerous it is when people can't stay home when they're sick.
That's it.
You know, when they feel that if they're coming down with something, then they risk not being able to buy the groceries or pay the utility bill.
Yes.
So they drag themselves to work. They put their coworkers at risk, and the people that they're working with, you know, like in a long-term care home, vulnerable residents are also put at risk. So we're, you know, the collective good is advanced when we can make sure that people who are sick or who have kids who are sick are able to stay home with them without jeopardizing their health or the health of their children. Yeah.
Now, right at that time, and it always seems to be like that whenever we get into the meat of certain things. So, you know, I'm going to say, give or take 2 years or so, there'll be another election.
2026.
2026,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, a little bit over 2 years.
3 years.
Three-
And, yeah, 3
3
years
years.
and a couple months. Yep.
When
I have a counter on my phone.
Because I'm about to say, when do you start?
Days.
When do you start the campaign, the unofficial campaign, or is the unofficial campaign every day?
You know, I just want to work as hard as I can for the people I represent. So for me, you know, whether we're in a campaign or not, I have a tremendous sense of responsibility to do the best that I can by the people I represent. And, you know, I'm going to do that whether there's a campaign on or not. I mean, as you get closer to the campaign, the set of kind of policy proposals that you offer to the people of the province become clearer and clearer. So you know, as we get closer to 2026 and party platforms are developed, that will all start to take shape.
How do we get more people to be aware and involved in politics so that it's not an overload when 2026 comes along?
Yeah, well, you know, it sort of goes full circle
okay.
to what we've been talking about,
Yeah.
because, and I was doing a little bit of reading before I came on today, and they have the researchers have seen a representation effect. When you elect more diverse people, you get more diverse voters engaged in the process, and you also, those people who are elected also become role models for other people to step forward to run for political office. So for a political party to make sure that the candidates who are representing your party, who are running to serve the people of this province, to ensure that those candidates reflect the diversity and the reality of the people in this province is really important to getting people engaged. People need to see themselves and their lives reflected in the things that, you know, in who's running for office and the things that those people are talking about. And the second part of that is also very important. We have to make sure that the issues that are being debated and discussed at the political level are the issues that people in this province really care about, because if it's not what, you know, if it doesn't really make a tangible difference in someone's life, then people are going to say, look, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter who I elect. It's not going to make a difference to me. And that's really sad. And I think for too long, that's what people have seen and felt. And so we've all got to do better. Political parties have got to do better in giving people a sense of hope, that life can be better, that we, you know, that things will improve for them in a real and tangible way. And then we got to deliver on that. You know, you can't just say you're going to do it and then not do it. So there are some challenges ahead, but it was a real wake-up call, that low voter turnout.
And I'm gonna head there again because there's a certain segment of the population, a lot of it is along economic lines,
Yeah.
that they don't even pay attention and they don't
That's
even
true.
look. So even if you do good things, how do you get that message into those areas so that the people can say, hey, we know about it? Because sometimes even when it comes up on whether it's social media, whether it's the papers, whatever it is, they're not paying attention, so they miss the fact that there's actually something good that's been done,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah.
that's very true, because I find, like, election day came along, I worked till like about 7 or
Mhm.
something, and it was, they were already closing the polls when I was, by the time I was done work, they had already
Mhm.
closed up everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I understand there may be early voters and all these other things in place, but I find people are working so hard
Yeah.
to the point
Mm.
that they can't, they don't,
Yeah,
that is.
and that's even getting to the day, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about even before we get to that day.
Yeah.
I remember I was with someone and somebody said they'd never seen a candidate in their area before,
Oh, wow.
really.
Yeah.
So, you know, back in the days when there used to be that ground campaign where people were not just visible only at election time.
Yeah.
And being visible. So if you know you're if you're representing a neighborhood and your neighborhood is, let's say, it's got a lot of it's depending on the makeup of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Are you visiting? Are you making sure your message is to the people that need to hear it, not just the people that
Are most likely to vote.
not just
Yeah,
not just because we know there's a certain set of people that will vote every time,
Yeah.
right? And likewise, we have that percentage that have never voted, that are
They
not
feel disempowered.
feel
Yeah,
disempowered.
yeah.
But if you don't visit them and if you don't talk to them, how are they going to ever feel empowered?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, and certainly as a candidate, I can say that I've spent a lot of times knocking on doors in Limberlost, for example, which doesn't have a high voter turnout, but I need to talk to people who live in Limberlost because they are facing, a set of challenges that I need to understand, and I need to be able to speak on behalf of those people when I am at Queen's Park. And that is something that I would say the NDP has always been, taken very much to heart, that this is our obligation to speak on behalf of everybody, and in order to be able to do that, we've got to connect with people where they are. And going back to the impact of the pandemic, I think that what we saw, like for somebody like me, one of the things that I put a lot of importance on is being as present in the community as I can, and being at as many different kinds of community events as I can, so that people see me as somebody who's approachable and they can talk to me about what's going on in their lives. And COVID, we had a period of 2 years where that wasn't happening. We weren't connecting, and so again, I think that increased that sense of disengagement between voters and people who are running for elected office. But it's really important for anyone who's elected to be out in the community, to be seen in the community, and to connect with people in the community, because that's the first step in making people feel like maybe it does make a difference who I vote for. If I vote for somebody who kind of gets what I'm what I'm dealing with, and will try to get changes made that are gonna make a difference for me.
Now, Peggy, before we close, I had a few questions for you.
Yeah.
But I know we're limited time. I was going through some 7 factors that deter women from participating in electoral politics. So number 1, there was the lack of confidence and abilities. What
Yeah.
would you say to someone who has those problems?
Well, believe in yourself. I mean, and actually, the funny thing about that is that that there's kind of a joke that that you have to ask a woman, typically a woman has to be asked like 7 times to run for office before she will finally agree to run. A man has to be asked once, and he says, "What took you so long to ask me?"
Yeah.
Because that does seem to be the way that women are, you know, there's so many different factors that they weigh when they're trying to make up their mind whether to run or not. But you know, the people who are asking you have a lot of confidence in your abilities. That's why they're asking you.
Awesome.
And you know, they're men never, you know, second guess whether they can do the job. But and we need women in politics. We need diverse women. We need young women. You know, we just need women. Make up half the population. We should make up half of the people who are elected to office.
Amazing. And then the second one was there's an insufficient effort to recruit female candidates.
That's totally true, and that's why the Ontario NDP has put in, it's in our constitution, that a party won't be able to go ahead with a nomination meeting to nominate a candidate until they have shown they've done an exhaustive search, and including they have to document all of the equity candidates that have been approached. So riding associations at the local level are required to not just look in their own little bubble of who we know, but to, you know, do a broad and wide search in the community, and you know, looking for leaders like yourself, you know, people who are making a difference and who should consider running for political office.
Thank you. I might consider it one day. And then the third was the difficulties in financing campaigns, especially for women. How do you manage that?
Well, and that's always been a barrier for women because they don't have those networks. Like a lot of men who go into politics, they've been lawyers, they've, you know, been business leaders, and they got a lot of the networks that help with the fundraising. But the fundraising can be a real barrier for me personally. The first time I decided to run for the school board, I was on the school board for 13 years before I ran as MPP. But the very first time I decided to run, it was Marion Boyd, former MPP here in London North. She wrote me a check, and she said, "I want you to run, and I'm going to, you know, donate some money to help your campaign." And that was huge for me. That was huge for me. And so
I like that, women supporting women.
Women supporting women, and I mean, it's hard to ask for money. It's very difficult to ask for money, but you got to do it. If you know you need money to run a campaign, so we don't have as, you know, the deep pockets in our network, but we have people who believe in us and want us to, you know, want to see us representing our communities.
You touched on that, and on Women's Day, Ariel had a live early in the morning, and she had the honorable judge from the U.S., and they spoke for a little while, and one thing I captured from what they had to discuss was always ask for help.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel whoever's listening, wherever you are, there's no shame in asking for help, especially in campaigns or anything you want to do. There's always the need for us to ask
people
for
want
help.
to help.
Yeah,
Actually, people
that's
want
it.
to help.
People do want to help. And then the fourth one was the absence of family-friendly, gender-sensitive workplaces.
Yeah.
How is that for you in politics right now?
Yeah.
Is it friendlier now? Is it sensitive to family? Like, I know as a woman, I mean, this is not a gender bias, but basically people believe that, okay, as a woman you have a family, you have to take care of it. How do you deal with that? Like, if you have kids, you've got to still be a mom, you still got to handle that. And then in the workplace, if there's something like you need to take your kid on a trip, is that still something that you are able to do?
It's challenging, and it's especially challenging for women who are running for election provincially or federally, because I go to Toronto. I'm in Toronto whenever the House is sitting, like whenever the legislature is sitting. Ariel goes to Ottawa, so
Mhm.
she, you leave your families at home. So that is a trade-off that a lot of women, it's a difficult decision for a lot of women. There are things that we can do within our caucus, for example. So we have, we talked about the fact that we have 60% of our caucus are women. A lot of them are young women. Butila Karpache, who I mentioned as the first Tibetan woman elected, she's got two children under 4.
Wow.
And so she has a lot. Now she lives in Toronto, so she's not away from home, but she has, there's accommodations for childcare. Women who are away from home, who have younger children at home, we make accommodations in terms of the time that they're expected to be in Toronto, so they can be, maybe only be there Tuesday, Wednesday, so that they only have to spend one night away from their families. So there's different changes that can be made that way to try to make the work-life balance a little bit more manageable for women with young families, but it's definitely a barrier. And one of the other barrier that kind of, you didn't really mention it, but when you talked about the environment, social media has made politics a very toxic environment, and especially for women. I think that it's been harder on women to deal with the social media cesspool than a lot of people, which is, everybody is, I think, feeling that on social media right now. But
It's toxic regardless.
Yeah, because like that ties into this too, because there's the gender-based violence and the gender-based media treatment, and also the stereotype and discrimination. So that kind of all comes in with the social media aspect of things.
yeah,
But it,
and the gender-based bias, what you see there, and this has been the case for a long time. A man will be strong and assertive. A woman will be perceived as aggressive and shrill.
yes.
So there are these different stereotypes that are used to diminish and put down a strong woman that are not used for men who are elected. So that's something that we're continuing to push back on, and also try to change the culture of politics so it's not quite as confrontational, which I think a lot of women don't really enjoy. I know myself, I don't enjoy that kind of environment. So I'm just doing what I'm doing, and then hoping that eventually we will be able to change the culture.
And I applaud you for that. I look at it, we're at 60% now, so that's good news.
Thank
Back
you.
to you, Colin.
And thank you so much for the information. Obviously, thank you for being on the Real Talk, Straight Talk. It's one of those.
Anytime.
I know.
I love it.
It's one of those times where I
We
kind of
love
have
your
to.
accessibility. It's nice to be able to know that we can reach out and come and share with us.
And I get to say, it's one of those times where I get to sit back and listen to it, especially the importance of it being around International Women's Day. Like you said, it was just a few days ago, and it's important to have these conversations with women. And it's important, I think, as a man to sit back and to also listen. Right. So once again, thank you. Thank you, Angel, as usual.
Thank you, Colin, for having me on the show today.
Of course, I got to say a special thank you to all our sponsors once again, and not only sponsors, but supporters, right? The Wien Community Center, Up Like 7 Barbershop, Paranine Bar and Grill, Pride, of course, and of course you, Angel. And we do have a few out of town with Soul Kitchen Radio in Hamilton and Rhythm Movements Community Association. Now this is, this is what we'd like to say is a fade to black. And once again, thank you. Fade to black, fade to black. I don't know if we did this the first time with you, but yeah, there we go.